So I have a personal story to share, and I came to Canada when I was 10 years old, and one of the things my father did to make ends meet was he had to put gas in people's cars. He came from a high job back in India where he's from, and that's what he had to do to make ends meet. I grew up in Toronto. I did my undergrad in Chicago. And I was reading a lot of articles about Canada's innovation declining, our productivity, our standard of living declining. And each and every time I read it, it was just another article to read. In 2008, when the recession hit, I came across one of the worst things I've ever come across in my life. And it was to lay off 11 of my staff members. And to see the impact it had on them and their families was devastating for me. So the next article that I read about Canada's innovation declining, I started to notice that as a guy who runs a company, we were taking on more projects at lower fees. And I noticed that when people talked about our standard of living is not sustainable, our productivity is declining, I noticed the impact it had on me. I noticed the impact it was on people around me. So I started to talk to people about a concern that I was dealing with, and how do we compete globally? How do we keep this going? And so through a series of conversations, I started to come across other people who had the same concerns. A colleague of mine, Ted Milucci, who's an executive at Tridel, and another colleague of mine, John King, who runs Culture Architect, got together and we decided we want to do something. And we talked about creating a game. John calls it a game worth losing at. So how do you get up every morning and play a game worth losing at? And so that's how, it was about how do you make a difference for the lives of the students, the kids, and everybody else in Canada.